Now to the abduction and release of the 279 students in Zamfara State. We're now joined by Aisha Oyebode, co-founder BBOG, that's Bring Back Our Girls, a gender specialist and currently researching Boko Haram and gender at the University of London. Good to have you join us, Aisha.
Hello. Good morning.
Fantastic. Let's begin by asking you, what are the implications of these incidences of kidnapping of schoolgirls and schoolboy students generally on both the parents, the students themselves, and the productivity of the nation or the individual anyway?
You see, what we have is a terrible situation. I mean, we're having one too many kids. Since December, we've had 4 kidnaps in schools. In fact, when we tallied the number in the last 6 months, I think we're looking at over 700 young boys and girls who've been length of time. Some of them have been with the kidnappers for over a week. Young boys have been beaten, before they are returned to us, and even the psychological impact on them. And then this is happening in a region where already it's very, very challenging to get young boys and girls to go to school, especially the girls. If you recall, in Zamfara State, about 2-3 years ago, there was a situation where only for WAEC, right, in a population of about 3.2 million. So what we are dealing with is a scourge that we need to tackle, and we need to tackle head on, and we need to tackle immediately. We need to give it the urgency that it requires.
Indeed. We seem to be having a bit of connection problem with you, but let's try one more time. As one who has been a strong advocate and calling for the safe return of the Chibok girls, the 112 of them remaining, do this repeated abduction and release give you any sliver of hope that the remaining Chibok girls would be returned safely to their families, even as we count down to 7 years since they've been gone?
Well, that's what we are doing, for them to be returned. But does it give me hope? No, it doesn't. We have a situation where between when the girls in Jangibe were abducted and now the numbers are uncertain. So there's a possibility that there might be 38 girls missing. We don't know for a fact. If that's the case, then we have another. And if you have a situation where terrorists abduct girls, and even we are not certain of the number, it actually makes us look like a joke. So if they could abduct 300 and they return 279, and we say, oh yes, there are only 270, then they're going to keep the rest. So in truth, what the situation is that we ourselves are not handling the situation well. And the longer, which is one of the things we kept saying with the Chibok girls, the longer we allow girls. So in truth, if we do have the in the hands of the kidnappers, the sooner we can bring those girls back home, the better. The longer girls are with kidnappers, what tends to happen is that, all sorts of things happen. Sexual assaults happen, the girls get abused very quickly, and it gets very much harder to and then it's very difficult to find them.
Okay, Aisha, I hope your line will sustain questioning. But you say we're not handling the situation well. So perhaps we can look at, from your research and your background, what patterns should be emerging by now that we should be paying close attention to as regards the abduction, the repeated abductions, and in particular to do with the girls?
I'm afraid, Ekene, you have to repeat that question. I lost you for a minute. I'm sorry, the connection just seems... Can you repeat that question? I lost you for 1 minute.
No problem. I said, you said we're not handling the situation well. So I'm asking, with regards to your research, with regards to your background, what aspects of the repeat abduction of the school children, and in particular the girls, should we be paying close attention to and highlighting to help us in tackling this problem?
Okay, so the first thing is that when women and children are returned, we need to understand. So it's beyond the immediate return, because that's what tends to happen. There's a lot of media attention at the time that they're returned. And then after that, what happens? Are we connecting the dots? Are we paying attention out who these groups are? So right now we are talking about whether they are bandits. In December, when the Kankara boys were taken, there was a whole argument whether it was just local bandits or whether it was actually Boko Haram. Because if it's Boko Haram, what we're looking at, their plan is not to keep returning the girls. After a while, whether it's women or girls or boys, they're going to begin to keep them, because what they are doing is that women are serving different purposes within these organizations. So they have a role where we call the victim role, where they are used as domestic slaves, they're used as sexual slaves, they're married off to the young combatants. And you must remember that a lot of these girls that are being abducted in the relative to the young men who are at the rank and file of Boko Haram above their status. So it's actually part of the incentive for young boys who are roaming the streets to join Boko Haram, because they get wives, their commanders get wives. So you have a whole structure. They're creating a role for women. They're creating a role for women in what we call a victim perpetrator role. So women are being used as suicide bombers. Did you know that in the entire history of the world, I'm repeating that, Boko Haram has used more women and girls in the entire history of the world. So if you assume that the Tamil Tigers, or Sri Lanka have used the most women and girls, in 10 years, they used a total of about 48. In 10 years, Boko Haram has used over 400 women and girls as suicide bombers. So second role that they're creating for women. The third role is the perpetrator role. Women can go into places when men cannot go into. So now they're using them as gun runners. And if it's true that some of the women who kidnapped, then we're actually beginning to see a rise in women being given more combatant roles. Now, these women have an incentive for more women to be kidnapped, because if I've been a sex slave and I've been in captivity for 10 years, it's to my advantage to go and find other young.
All right. Aisha, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Good.
I'm really not
Good.
much of.
Yeah, well, we're managing the situation one way or another. Sheikh
Yes.
Gumi, in one of his interviews, says these people are not bandits, and that journalists should stop calling them criminals. What's your sense of Gumi's forays into the forest to negotiate with these bandits?
Again, I lost a little bit of the question.
I'll take it again. Yeah, I'm talking about the Sheikh Gumi. He says that we should not call these people bandits, that they're not, and journalists should stop calling them criminals. So I'm asking, what's your sense of Gumi's forays into the forest to negotiate with these bandits?
I mean, the one thing I can say is that if he can go to, means that we also, the Nigerian military, the Nigerian intelligence should be able to start thinking of how we are going to be able to reach out to them. But I have a slightly different view. I think we need to have a zero tolerance policy. This is crime. This is activity. We cannot pander to people who are doing this to our children. We cannot pander to people who are doing this to our women and girls. We need to have a zero tolerance policy for people who break the law.
Indeed.
Well, understand that, then we're going to begin to see a reduction in this kind of behavior. But for as long as we continue to pander to them, this crime is going to continue. Now, the other thing I also want to make a point about is that with any of the terrorist organizations, every time we pay a ransom, what is happening is that we're actually funding additional terrorist activities. So I think we need to pay attention to that as well.
Okay, let me ask you about the international traction to all of this, because when we had the Chibok girls, there was so much international attention. That seemed to have waned over the years. What do you make of the international traction to these repeated attacks on schools in Nigeria? And I'm curious to find out why you decided to go to research the terrorist group Boko Haram and gender. Tell us about your research and why you decided to do that.
Okay, so you were talking about international traction. International traction is important for us. We cannot fight terrorism on our own. There are very many protocols that are coming out, especially even with regards to financing of kidnapping. We need to, so in terms of that, in that regard, we do need international support. But international support does not take away the problem. Why do we not have our best minds in intelligence? Why are we not able to preempt these people? How is it possible that people will come and take 300 women and girls in Hiluxes? How many do you fit in a Hilux? When those able to see them on the back of motorcycles, do you understand? Where are they keeping those women and girls? When the Nigerian military went into the Boko Haram enclaves to start looking for the women and girls that had been kidnapped, including the children, in truckloads. So are they raising down villages and taking these women and girls? How are we not noticing that? How are we not accounting for all these women and girls? Now, the reason why I chose to do this study is because of
Hello, Aisha, do we still have you? We seem to have lost connection with Aisha Oyebode. Do we still have you there? Okay, we seem to have lost connection with her. Aisha Oyebode, convener of the Bring Back Our Girls campaign, speaking to us there from Connecticut.